There's an exact moment, and I'm talking about milliseconds, when your brain decides to reject money. And this doesn't happen when you spend. It happens when you're about to gain. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you the neurological mechanism that sabotages your wealth before it even reaches you. And the scariest part? You probably did this today without even realizing it. Look, I know what you're thinking, nobody consciously rejects money. And you're right. Consciously, no. But there's a much older system in your brain, a part that evolved 200,000 years ago, when accumulating resources meant being expelled from the tribe, and that system is still active. Still protecting you from a threat that no longer exists. First, I'm going to show you the experiment that proved this. Then, the 5 invisible moments when this rejection happens in your daily life. And at the end, the exact protocol that interrupts this pattern. But you need to stay until the end, because the last moment is the hardest to detect, and probably the most expensive. Stanford University. Neuroscientist Brian Knudsen puts 89 people inside an MRI machine and makes a simple proposal. Choose between receiving $20 guaranteed right now or participating in a game where you can win $50 with a 60% chance. Mathematically, it's obvious. The expected value of the game is $30. Any rational person would choose the game. But that's not what happened. 68% of participants chose the $20. And here's the most interesting part, Knudsen wasn't interested in their choice. He was observing what happened in the brain 0.3 seconds before the decision. The MRI showed something terrifying. When the option to win more money appeared on the screen, 3 things happened in the brain, in this exact order. First, the nucleus accumbens, your reward center, lit up. Opportunity, it screamed. Dopamine fired. Excitement. Second, milliseconds later, the anterior insula went into panic mode. This is the part of the brain responsible for detecting danger and physical pain. And it was interpreting the opportunity to win more as a threat. Third, the prefrontal cortex, your rational part, tried to arbitrate. But here's the problem, when the insula fires first, it hijacks the decision-making process. And you know what Knudsen discovered? The larger the opportunity for gain, the more intense the insula activation. Your brain was literally more afraid of winning $50 than excited about the possibility. Why the hell would your brain do this? The answer lies 200,000 years in the past. Imagine, you're a human on the African savanna. Your group has enough resources to survive. Suddenly, you find a giant reserve of fruit. What happens if you take it all? You stand out. You have more than others. And in primitive tribal psychology, standing out doesn't mean success, it means risk. Risk of envy. Risk of being seen as a threat. Risk of expulsion from the group. And expulsion, in that context, meant death. So your brain developed a safety system, automatically reject opportunities to accumulate much more than the average of your group. And here's the devastating problem, that system is still active. Still functioning. Every time an opportunity for significant gain appears, a promotion, an investment, a new business, the insula fires before you can think rationally. And this is where it gets interesting. Because there are 5 specific moments in your day when this mechanism silently sabotages you. And you probably experienced at least 3 of them this week. Moment number 1, you're negotiating your salary. The recruiter asks, "What's your salary expectation?" And here's the exact moment. You know you're worth $10,000. The market pays $10,000. But when you open your mouth, what comes out is, "Oh, between $7,000 and $9,000 is fine." What just happened? 0.3 seconds before you spoke, your insula fired. It detected that asking for $10,000 would mean standing out. Would mean claiming value above average. And that ancestral system interpreted this as social danger. A 2019 study from Columbia Business School analyzed 18,000 real salary negotiations. Finding: 63% of people self-sabotage by reducing the number they intended to say in the last 2 seconds of negotiation. Not because they changed their minds, but because the primitive brain took control. Average cost of this millisecond hesitation? $4,200 per year. Multiplied by a 30-year career? $126,000. You rejected $126,000 in 0.3 seconds. But this is just the first moment. The second is even more subtle. Moment number 2, someone offers you a legitimate growth opportunity. A side project. A partnership. A leadership position. Your first reaction, the very first one, before you filter it, is enthusiasm. This would be incredible. But then, 0.5 seconds later, comes the avalanche. Am I qualified enough? What if I fail? What if people think I'm being arrogant? Better not risk it. This isn't imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is doubting your competence. This is different. This is your brain interpreting potential success as social threat. A University of Warwick study with 12,000 professionals showed something shocking. People who reported fear of appearing arrogant refused growth opportunities 3.7 times more frequently than those without that fear, even when they were equally qualified. And here's the saddest part: when researchers asked these people's colleagues if they would see them as arrogant for accepting the opportunity, the answer was no, in 91% of cases. The threat was completely imaginary. But your brain doesn't know the difference. And wait until you see the third moment. This one happens every time you open your bank account. Moment 3, your bank account is growing. You saved $20,000. Then $30,000. Now $40,000. And instead of security, you feel anxiety. A strange discomfort. A voice whispering, this is too much money sitting there. You should spend it on something. Help someone. Invest in something risky. Anything but let it accumulate. This is your brain in tribal redistribution mode. It's interpreting personal accumulation as social imbalance that needs to be corrected. And the evidence for this is in a phenomenon called threshold spending. A 2018 financial behavior study showed that people have invisible psychological limits of how much they can accumulate before feeling compulsion to spend. For some, it's $5,000. For others, $50,000. But the pattern is universal: the closer to your personal threshold, the stronger the discomfort. And the more irrational the spending. Researchers made a disturbing discovery: these compulsive, relief spending episodes don't generate real pleasure. In brain scans, they activate the same areas as anxiety relief behaviors, like nail biting. You're not spending because you want to. You're spending to relieve the discomfort of having. Moment 4 is the hardest to admit: you're actively avoiding financial visibility. A friend asks how much you make. You minimize. A family member offers an inheritance or investment. You refuse without thinking it through. Someone publicly recognizes your success. You quickly deflect. This isn't humility. Humility is not bragging. This is active rejection of value recognition. And the cost of this is invisible but devastating. High-value networking happens when people know what you do and what you're worth. Opportunities appear for those who are visible. But your tribal brain is keeping you invisible for safety. A fascinating 2020 study analyzed LinkedIn profiles of 50,000 professionals. Finding: people who underreported their achievements and salaries, verifiable information, received 58% fewer recruiter proposals and investment opportunities. They were literally paying to remain invisible. And when researchers asked why they didn't update their profiles honestly, the most common answer was, I don't want to seem pretentious. Translation: I don't want to stand out from the tribe. But none of this compares to the fifth moment. This is the most destructive of all, and it happens in the most unexpected place. Moment 5, you're about to commit to something that could really change your financial situation. A long-term investment. An expensive course. A mentor. Starting a business. And at the last moment, literally at the moment of clicking, bite, or signing the contract, you stop. I'll think about it more. I'll wait for the right moment. It's not urgent. This isn't prudence. Prudence is rational risk analysis. This is your brain pulling you back to the status quo because significant economic level change feels dangerous to tribal identity. A brutal Harvard Business School study followed 3,400 people who almost invested in high-value professional development, courses above $1,000, mentorships, MBAs. They compared them with people who followed through. Income difference after 5 years? 37%. But here's the shocking part, when asked why they gave up at the last moment, 71% couldn't give a rational reason. Just, it didn't feel right. Something stopped me, I got scared. It wasn't analysis. It was the insula. So now you know the 5 moments. But knowing isn't enough. Because the question that matters is, how the hell do you interrupt this pattern when it's happening in milliseconds? That's where the protocol comes in. Here's the bad news first, you cannot beat the insula with willpower. You can't think positive and overcome 200,000 years of evolution. Why? Because the system protecting you operates 300 milliseconds before consciousness. When you decide to use willpower, the decision to reject has already been made. You're fighting a ghost. But here's the good news, you don't need to beat this system. You need to reprogram the trigger. And there's a scientifically proven way to do this. It comes from an area of neuroscience called memory reconsolidation, the process by which your brain updates old memories with new information. Let me show you exactly how it works. First step, you need to capture the exact moment when rejection happens. And it always comes with a physical marker. It's not emotional, it's physical. It could be a tightness in the chest, breathing that gets shorter, an impulse to quickly change the subject, a sensation of shrinking in the body. For the next 3 days, your only mission is to notice that marker every time a financial opportunity appears. Don't try to change anything. Just observe. Ah, there it is. The chest tightness. Ah, the breathing got short. Why does this work? Because observation creates distance. And distance partially deactivates the amygdala, the part that executes the automatic response. Second step, and this is counterintuitive, when you identify the sensation, you're going to name it out loud. Literally say, tribal protection system activated. Not, I'm afraid. Not, I'm weak. Tribal protection system activated. Why this specific phrase? Because it does 3 things simultaneously. 1, it removes moral judgment. It's not character failure, it's biology. 2, it creates linguistic distance. You are not the fear, you observe a system. 3, it activates the prefrontal cortex. Verbal naming is an executive function that competes with emotional response. A UCLA study showed that simply naming emotions reduces amygdala activation by up to 30% in just 10 seconds. It's like giving a sedative to the primitive brain. Third step, you're going to teach your brain that the situation is safe. Not with positive affirmations, with concrete evidence. Here's the exact script you use mentally or out loud. What my primitive brain thinks, the opportunity, equals social threat. Real-world evidence, 3 concrete examples of people who did this and remained socially accepted. Practical example, you're negotiating salary. Your brain fires. You think. What my primitive brain thinks, asking for 10,000 equals appearing greedy equals rejection. Real-world evidence, John asked for market value and was respected. Mary negotiates aggressively and gets promoted. My boss himself would probably respect it. Why does this work? You're using a modern human function, counterfactual thinking, to update an ancestral memory. Each time you do this, you weaken the neural connection between opportunity for gain and social danger. This is literally memory reconsolidation in action. Fourth and final step, and this is critical, in the next 60 seconds, not tomorrow, not later, you take one micro-action toward the opportunity. It doesn't have to be the complete decision. It needs to be a bodily movement that your brain associates with moving forward instead of pulling back. Concrete examples. Negotiation opportunity: write the number you want on a paper project offered, respond, I'm interested, give me 24 hours to review. Investment: add to cart, don't need to buy yet. Visibility: share a small achievement on social media. Why 60 seconds? Because after 60 seconds, the insula recalibrates and the neuroplasticity window closes. You lose the reprogramming moment. Each time you complete these 4 steps, identify, name, recalibrate, act, you're literally building a new neural pathway. And neuroplasticity is cumulative. Here's the last thing you need to know about this protocol: it doesn't work the first time. Not the second. Maybe not even the 5th. Because you're competing with 200,000 years of conditioning. But there's a neurological tipping point. A 2019 study on new neural pattern formation showed that it takes 21 repeated exposures for a new response to start competing in speed with an old automatic response. Translation: you need to go through these 4 steps 21 times. Not in identical situations, any moment when rejection appears counts. And here's what happens after the 21st time: the protocol starts running automatically. You don't even need to think anymore. Your brain starts identifying and recalibrating without conscious effort. It's like learning to drive. At first, every movement is deliberate and uncomfortable. After 21 times, you're driving while talking and drinking coffee. The difference? You'll be driving toward opportunities you used to automatically reject. But now I need to tell you the most important part of all. Because there's one type of opportunity that activates this system stronger than any other. And if you don't know what it is, nothing else matters. There are 5 rejection moments. But there's one category of opportunity that triggers all 5 simultaneously with maximum intensity. It's not a salary increase. It's not an investment. It's not even a new business. It's the opportunity to change economic identity. Let me be more specific: it's any situation where you would need to see yourself, and be seen, as a person at a fundamentally different financial level than your current one. Not 20% richer. Not earning more. But a different category of person. And here's why this is the maximum trigger: your tribal brain doesn't just reject standing out. It rejects tribal betrayal. Changing economic level means, to your primitive brain, abandoning the group and joining the enemy. A brutal example: lottery winners. A study followed 412 lottery winners for 5 years. Shocking result: 70% of them sabotaged the wealth back to the original level within 3 to 5 years. Not because they spent it all. Because they subconsciously rejected the new economic identity. They made progressively worse financial decisions. They became uncomfortable with safe investments. They felt guilt for having much more than people close to them. And they ended up at a similar level to the beginning. Not because the fortune ran out. Because the brain pulled them back to the original tribal identity. So here's the definitive test. And I want you to do this now, mentally, while you listen to me. Complete this sentence out loud or mentally. I am a person who, describe your current economic level, dot. For example, I am a person who earns $5,000 a month. Now complete this sentence. I am a person who, describe an economic level 10x larger, dot. For example, I am a person who earns $50,000 a month. Did you feel it? That discomfort completing the second sentence? That sensation of, this doesn't sound like me? That impulse to add qualifiers, would be a person, I could be, I'd like to be. That's identity rejection. And it's the reason so many people stay stuck at an economic level their entire lives, regardless of how many opportunities appear. Because they can't see themselves at the next level. And your brain won't allow you to reach what you can't inhabit in identity. But here's the final truth nobody tells you: identity is neuroplastic. It can be reprogrammed. You just need to know how. So let me recap what you just discovered. Your brain rejects money in milliseconds, not due to moral failure, but due to evolutionary tribal protection. This happens in 5 invisible moments: negotiation, opportunity, accumulation, visibility, and commitment. And the maximum trigger? Any situation that requires economic identity change. But you also learn the 4-step protocol that reprograms this system: identify, name, recalibrate, act. And that after 21 repetitions, this protocol becomes automatic. This isn't self-help information. This is applied neuroscience. It's the real functioning of your brain and how to modify it. If you made it this far, I know you're one of the few people willing to look at your own invisible patterns. That already puts you ahead of 90% of people. So help me with something: leave a like on this video. Not for me, but because YouTube's algorithm is simple: the more likes, the more people who need to understand this will see it. And this knowledge is too rare to remain invisible. And subscribe to the channel, because in upcoming videos we're going to dive into the other invisible patterns that control your relationship with money. In the next one, I'm going to show you why you feel pleasure when you financially self-sabotage. And yes, it's real. But before you leave, let me leave you with a thought. If your brain rejects money to protect you, from whom exactly is it protecting you? Because they're not real people. They're ghosts of ancestors who don't even exist anymore. The question you need to ask isn't, how do I make more money? It's, who do I need to allow myself to be so that making more is no longer a threat? Think about it. See you in the next video.